the Dream Machine. My name is Arun.
And my name is Patricia.
Hey Patricia, how's it going?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, before we actually get into this episode of Dream Machine, there is something I actually kind of want to point out for everybody, and I would point it out if I had my list up in front of me, because I actually did jot this down whilst I was, during the production of Dream Machine. We were currently into, I think we're episode like 15, 16, I think, at this point.
Yes.
I think, yeah, so one thing I'm starting to notice is that there's a trend in all the... For those who don't know, I actually put up like either the VHS posters or the like the movie covers or up on the... if you're watching it on YouTube. And there's something I seem to be kind of noticing when I'm going through the posters. So we'll start off with like, say, Sinbad's Legend of the Seven Seas. From the creators of Shrek. And also, if you go to the poster of Shark Tale, it's like, from the creators of Shrek, Madagascar, from the creators of Shrek, Wallace and Gromit, from the creators of Shrek. And now we're finally getting into Over the Hedge, and gee, I wonder what else they made.
Could it be Shrek?
Oh, really? I thought it was Toy Story. But
damn it.
But anyway,
well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I did notice that because they didn't post up any other of their movies. Like, you know how Disney and Pixar have also done similar things. You know, like from the studio that brought you classics like Cinderella or Pinocchio, or in more recent movies they said like from the studio that brought you Frozen and Zootopia and Moana. They list up like multiple movies that have come out over the years, but it seems like over the past couple of years for DreamWorks, they've only cited out the movies that have been really, really successful, which were Shrek and Madagascar.
Here's the thing about this, and I don't really understand why Pixar and other movie companies do this. I mean, I guess I can see that because obviously they've seen other movies and they like those movies. They think that the advertisements of those other films and tying them to those movies will obviously make them go and see this one. But I don't understand why Pixar and DreamWorks need to actually do that type of advertising, because everyone knows who DreamWorks is, and everyone knows who Pixar is, and because it's obviously is a Disney, a part of Disney, and so for me, I don't understand why they just say Disney Pixar's this is what it is, or DreamWorks this is what it is, because even DreamWorks has been known now. It is a brand known from back in the 90s. Even Animaniacs was even referencing DreamWorks. Like,
I have no idea. I guess maybe because there were so many animation studios around the time that they wanted to distinct themselves from the other. Maybe there were some people who actually confused Pixar for DreamWorks. I have no idea.
Maybe it just seems kind of weird to me, So anyway, so enough of chit chat. Shall we get on to this week's episode and see what it's got for us?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. So Over the Hedge is a 2006 computer-animated comedy film based on the characters of the comic strips of the same name, produced by DreamWorks Animation and currently distributed worldwide by Paramount Pictures. It was released in May 19th of 2006. So, in regards to Over the Hedge, I mean, the story, I guess you could say, is pretty basic, I think you can say. So, a raccoon named RJ goes into this bear's hibernation cave and manages to lose all his food. And so obviously the bear wakes up, and then obviously he's threatened to killing RJ, but RJ says that he can get all that food back. So he enlists the animals, if you will, to that have just found that most of their forest has now disappeared and has been replaced by this kind of urban kind of garden community, and then they basically explore this whole world, and so it's. Yeah, it's a pretty standard, I guess, animated adventure, I guess you could say, in the context of what it's based in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Have you ever heard of Watership Down?
Yeah, actually, there's a pretty brutal film, actually.
Yeah, it is a pretty brutal film, but it's essentially like the same plot in which, their land was being taken over by man and they have to wander around so they can be able to find themselves a new place to live. And there's a huge obstacle that they have to overcome, which, in that case was another, group of rabbits. But I guess in this case, they wanted to make, I guess for the comic strip, I guess it was supposed to be like from what I understand, it's supposed to be like a take on, how, humans and animals kind of interact with one another, and how, the animals are enticed by the humans' technology and the way that they're living, and the animals are just enthralled with it. And I guess it's kind of like some sort of commentary on it.
Yeah,
but here, I think they decided, hey, let's take that comic strip and pretty much do Madagascar again with all its craziness.
Yeah, here's the thing about this, everybody. Anyone who's a fan of the comic strip, I've never seen it, so I'm literally just looking at this movie as is. So,
yeah, I haven't seen it either.
No. So, I mean, I guess, there's not really much to say about the story. It just is that here's these animals all just discover this, this urban center and all just, run havoc pretty much, and RJ's trying to manipulate them all to try and get them all to get all this food. And we get, I've got to be honest also, on top of that as well, like, some of these characters, they're not all that memorable.
Like, no, I don't even remember most of them. The only reason why I remember some of them is because of their voice actors, not because of their characters or anything that they've done,
Yeah. Okay, so Bruce Willis as a lead in this film.
Oh, God. Okay. I want to point out something. So, Bruce Willis, I take it that this would have been, I think, maybe about a few years after he voiced Spike in Rugrats Go Wild. And he played as this smarmy, cocky, overconfident portrayal of Spike, which was never seen in Rugrats. And I kind of feel like that sort of smarminess in RJ, not in a sense in which, he's like overconfident, but in a way that he's kind of like manipulating all these other animals into, gathering up the food instead of, we're not doing, we're going to be doing this for our survival. But no, it's just that I'm going to be doing this so I can pay off this bear because I got rid of his food.
It just seems weird. Like, also on top of that, in a way, can you say that the voice matches the character?
No, not even close. And it didn't even match Spike either. I think it was just a combination of Bruce Willis's acting, which doesn't fit, and the way that they were able to write, in the case of Spike or in the case of RJ. It just felt like it didn't mash very well.
Yeah. I guess if we're going to talk about Rugrats One Gone Wild, I think in regards to Bruce Willis being Spike, there's only one part of the delivery which I ever liked out of that, was that when he said what his full name was like, Spike, get off the couch. Which is like, okay, that was funny, but, the rest of the movie after that, it's like, Spike should not have been Bruce Willis.
Like, God, I still think that...
It's kind of like if, we found out that Maggie was Cyndi Lauper. It's kind of like, these two things don't go together,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, when you hear Bruce Willis from Die Hard say, I ate Chucky's diaper once, it was spicy, or when he's singing a song about how dogs are better than cats to a freaking leopard, it's like, you need to get your priorities straight, man. I think this was at the point in which Bruce Willis was like at the low point of his career. I saw him all the time in Nickelodeon's Snick on Air Dare, and I think this was like around the time in which he was doing those Die Hard sequels that pretty much nobody liked. So, yeah, I think it was like a low point for him. Or maybe he was doing it for his kids, very similar to how Eddie Murphy was in a lot of those really crappy family movies around the 2000s and 2010s.
Yeah. So, Gary Shandling is Verne. He's the turtle, I believe. And,
he's the turtle.
Pretty much. And, I can see what they were trying to go for. I think they were trying to make some of his, like, quirkiness, like, not only, like, I guess kind of like a mixture between kind of like wise and cute. which you can't really nail down. Those two things together, really. It's like it's peanut butter and jelly go together, like but I think peanut butter and nails, I don't think necessarily go together, and I think that's basically what we got here. And so it's just for me, Vern just wasn't. Yeah, again, he was on that as well. Like, I felt like he was too played down. I think a little bit. Yeah, there was like parts when like he was like there was one point where he was like he looked like he was excited. He was excitable. I think when he wasn't like when all the Tex Avery craziness wasn't going on. Like,
I think I know why. It's because they were overcompensating Vern for Hammy. Oh my God, Hammy was just so freaking insane.
Oh, he was in your face the entire time, and it got to the point where it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm glad the movie is over because I don't have to see that again.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's the only one I remember from the movie because if he was just everybody else was just so bland.
Yeah.
And I was shocked when I found out that Steve Carell played as him because that doesn't sound like Steve Carell.
I know, like, they must have pitched him up. I think.
Yeah, I guess so. Because when you know about Steve Carell, you know about like Gru from Despicable Me, or from The Office, or from a whole bunch of his other roles. But this one was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I think when we look back on Steve Carell, I think this is one role I think we'll probably not be looking back too fondly on.
Exactly. Yeah, this is definitely. I think this will probably go down as one of the low points of his career, next to Evan Almighty.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever had a roast, but surely that's going to come up when.
That would be so funny.
Oh
yeah.
My goodness. So, Wanda Sykes plays Stella, and
stereotypical Wanda Sykes portrayal.
Yeah.
Playing as the sassy character. She did the same thing when she was Bessie from Barnyard.
Yeah, and there's other celebrities all jam-packed into this movie. They were hoping that this was going to be a success.
Yeah, exactly. They were essentially taking, what they were doing for their previous movies, in which, hey, let's just stick a whole bunch of celebrities into a role and let's get people to, see them in the poster saying like, oh, I know who these celebrities are. I would be happy to take my kids with them, which, Jeffrey Katzenberg has known for doing that in the past. It's like, oh, your kids would know who these celebrities are, but the parents would, which is another way to entice them to, fill up the seats, which is, I guess there's a bit of an argument about like, when did celebrities were like the staple in bringing them over to, the seats, because they needed to draw in a general audience. A lot of people say Robin Williams as the genie was the one that pretty much kickstarted it. I heard in an episode of the Animated Anarchy podcast that it was technically like Phil Harris from The Jungle Book, because he was a famous lounge singer. But yeah, but we can agree that the one that popularized it was Robin Williams as the genie, and ever since then, animated movies tend to use a lot of celebrities to, bring in a lot of people to watch their films. And DreamWorks uses this to the nth degree. Like, they would bring in so many celebrities into their films to
look at their staple, which is Shrek. I mean, it's Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy. The name goes right.
Let's see, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz,
Antonio Banderas. Yeah, exactly. They even their. I mean, if you look at Toy Story, Tim Allen's probably like their biggest celebrity. I think,
Tim Allen and Tom Hanks were like their biggest celebrities at the time. And, everybody else, sure, you have like Don Rickles, especially for the much older crowd who would know about him, and, various other characters. But yeah, I mean, they would have like a sprinkle of a few celebrities and maybe a few people that you wouldn't really know about because, they're a lot older.
Yeah, but even then, some of the celebrity voices, if you even look at, I know everyone's going to say for the umpteenth time you're going back to Hey Arnold, but, even then, like, these celebrity voices that they brought in, at least they were back from the radio days.
And of course there was like Christopher Lloyd, but I think that was their only major celebrity, I think.
Yeah, he tried to get on Schwarzenegger, but obviously that never happened. But but here, this is like Over the Hedge. Here is exactly the opposite of some of these cartoons that we're used to, where like it's like it's people like within the voice acting community, like Tara Strong and people like that, who do these cartoons. But here, you look down the list, William Shatner's in this film.
Yeah, and again, this very similar to Bruce Willis. I really do respect William Shatner. I was, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but oh man, I don't think I've heard a movie where William Shatner was like a highlight for his voice acting.
He was over dramatic with it at the moment. I think that's probably what they were going for with the Aussie character.
I mean, William Shatner is known for his over dramatic hamminess. It's like, everybody talks like this. Everybody always says this when they're doing a William Shatner impression.
It's a great joke and a great bit, so we must do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, movies like this do not help William Shatner in his overacting when he is in a movie that's filled with overacting.
Yeah, like things like maybe like, let's say for example Sharknado. Like, if William Shatner turns up in Sharknado, yeah, of course it's going to be William Shatner because they kind of those campy movies that are supposed to be bad. Like, and they do celebrities over the top. Yeah, of course, things. That's the reason why you would utilize William Shatner in this. But here, this isn't one of those times. Like, no. It's an animated movie, yeah, and like, I guess the one thing I don't like about this movie is that I guess I just don't like its theme. Like, the way that it's kind of like the kind of the way it's set out. Like, I mean, how long is this movie again? Like, how long did we sit down for? 87 minutes.
Yeah,
like, for this, I would sit down only for 5 minutes for it. I'll be totally brutally honest with everybody. I would be like, this reminds me, and I'm sure this is probably what they were going for. This reminds me of the Looney Tunes, back in the day. Like, when they did, like, all the over-the-top stuff, like, you'd zoom out of the planet and you'd see the explosion, or you'd, his face would, like, splat on the screen or something like that, or, like, here's some dynamite and it would blow up and they'd still be alright even afterwards, that kind of cartoony violence that we're used to back in the heyday.
So in this movie, let's see what we got. I mean, we have like somebody opening like a bag of like Cheetos or something, and when he opens up the bag, the whole world kind of like explodes into like this puffy orange smoke, and everybody was like, oh. And then, of course, there's the scenes in which Hammy was like eating cookies, and he's like going like insane, and he's like, I want cookies, I want cookies, I want cookies, like a drug addict, and oh my God. And, there's that ridiculous chase scene, which, that was fun, but it was just kind of like a little bit wacky. I think that, with this movie, I think it was trying to capture the bottle of Madagascar.
Yeah. Actually, I just realized something. There's actually a name here, which I've only just seen in the voice cast list, and we've never even talked about it.
What?
Avril Lavigne.
Oh my God, I forgot that she was in this movie.
I know, isn't she so interchangeable in this film? Like, you could put any female voice actor in that role.
Well, guess what? She was hugely popular around the 2000s when, she was releasing like, Complicated and Skater Boy and all that stuff. This was like when, the popularity of like punk rock. So, this was like at the high of her career. Yeah.
And so, I think she was making the transition from to acting. I think she was.
Yeah, she was like kind of like she wanted to branch out into other things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't seem to land very well for her, I don't think so.
No, not really. I think that she's changed genres since then, and a lot of people said, what happened to the punk rock? I miss the Avril Lavigne with the stringy hair and the loose tie. It's I mean, it's to be fair,
do you know what? I guess if I had to cast Avril Lavigne in a film, I'd probably have her in a School of Rock sequel. With Jack Black.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like
I don't even know if kids nowadays would even know who she is, but I could see that.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going for like a musically based film, I think some people have some grasp of like who if you're a Spotify addict, obviously you're going to come across Avril Lavigne at some point. During your time. So I think that type of crowd, I think, would understand who she is. So I think if you had like a musical based theme, kind of like I'm trying to think of what's a good example would be. I mean, like say for example, like no, I can't think of anything at the moment. I'm sure something will come to me eventually, but I mean,
sure.
The last episode of this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, now I got an example for Avril Lavigne. She could have maybe she could have been like maybe wait, I still couldn't think of it. Damn it. Oh well. Thank you so much for listening to DreamMachine. Okay, but no, I think that I know what they were doing. So here's the thing. it's very we've seen that with like Garfield and Marmaduke, it's very difficult to stretch a simple comic strip into an hour and a half long movie. I guess, the whole point of the comic strip was animals interacting with human technology and the way that humans live and their commentary on it. I guess, I guess that with DreamWorks, their huge hit at the time was Madagascar. They decided, hey, let's just catch lightning in a bottle twice and do Madagascar again, except put it into this comic strip, which probably didn't have a lot of material to work with, and just stretch it out. I even mentioned this in my my Emblemation Trilogy podcast when we were talking about We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, where that was based off of a book series, and there wasn't really much to the book, so they had to add in a lot of things to it, and in the result, it just became a little bit insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, the kind of like the way that this film is, also some of that as well, the music. I mean, not memorable. Like, I don't remember anything from the score or anything from that at all.
Yeah,
really.
not really. No.
And and also our villain isn't all that. Our villain is barely in the story.
The pest exterminator.
Yeah, well, no, the pest exterminator. I mean, I would say that the bear.
Oh, you mean the bear? The bear.
Like, he's in the beginning, he's in a dream sequence, and then he's at the end, and that's all the time you ever see him.
I mean, the pest exterminator could have been like an additional villain in addition to the bear. It was Thomas Hayden Church who played as the pest exterminator, and a lot of people may know him as Sandman from Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was okay. I mean, the only gag that he's, doing is that, while he's trying to find these animals, and he just keeps, catching, these, like, those flamingos that you would see outside, as like in the front yard.
No, that's the thing. I can't remember these jokes. Like, again, like, here's another thing as well. This movie's not all that funny.
No, it's not. I know they're trying so hard to make these gags really funny for the kids, but in most of it just kind of falls flat.
It got so desperate they had to make fun of Dr. Phil. And, like,
who's going to know about that reference?
I know, exactly. And, like, I'm sure that one was just put in for the adults, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that just pretty much sums up the movie in a nutshell. It's like
you're going to think about that as well. Actually, William Shatner's in this movie. Bruce Willis is in this movie. It's making reference to Dr. Phil. Like, which age bracket is this movie for?
Yeah, exactly. I guess this was when DreamWorks was like trying to focus a lot more on bringing in the celebrities and trying to get more money in the box office and less about writing a coherent story and, using the celebrities to their advantage.
Well, but mind you, the problem is that some of the celebrities that they bring in for some of these movies actually kind of make sense because they're either what they are for their time or that they've been timeless, actors, and like they obviously they do all sorts of things. Like bring in a movie, bring in Dwayne Johnson, for example, like for a modern movie.
Like Moana, for example.
Exactly, that makes sense because he's like one of the most recognizable actors, and he's going to transcend. Like he's a great guy to get for a movie, regardless of whether it's going to be bad or whether it's going to.
Let's take an example for maybe a more recent film. Well, not recent, but I mean like a movie that has been timeless for the past decades or so. So let's take something like Little Mermaid. The movie's been around for about 30 years, and you listen to the voice actors that have portrayed in their roles. Like, let's take Buddy Hackett from, who played as, Scuttle. Buddy Hackett is a very well-known comedy actor. He's been in so many films and TV shows. Now, when you listen to him as Scuttle, I mean, it's a very hilarious character. You don't need to know about Buddy Hackett in order for you to get into the character. Or, Robin Williams is the genie. This was, a lot of people know about Robin Williams, but maybe for a kid who never seen any films with Robin Williams, like maybe The Fisher King or, maybe other.
I'm trying to remember. Was he Mrs. Doubtfire before he was the genie? Or was
yes, he was, because let's see, Aladdin came out in 92, Mrs. Doubtfire came out in 93. So yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire was before, after Aladdin.
I just realized I was thinking about that as well, because Pierce Brosnan's also in Mrs. Doubtfire as well, and he was Bond at the time. Like,
yeah,
how
exactly.
crazy is that?
Exactly. So. But yeah, the point is that I understand the argument about like, oh, why don't they use real voice actors to be in these movies? And I would love to see, people like, Tara Strong and Rob Paulson,
Jim
Ray
Cummings,
Delisle, and
like,
Jim Cummings in a feature film. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But I don't mind a few sprinkles of celebrities if they're done well. If they're just throwing in celebrities for the sake of just throwing in celebrities to bring people into the seats, then yeah, we have a problem. I think that another great example. It doesn't even
have to be like massive celebrities either. I mean, like Ratatouille is probably one of Pixar's greatest films, and yet the guy who plays Remy, but plays his, I guess, supporting act, Alfred Linguini. He's just one of the back staff at Pixar.
Yeah, he was just, a guy who was like doing animation and production. And, Pixar does this a lot in which, hey, there's this animator or producer, let's get him to do the movie.
It was great because he actually, credit to, I keep forgetting his name, what his name was, but, he sounded like the guy from Napoleon Dynamite. Like,
John Heder,
Yeah, like for a minute, oh wow, they got John Heder for this film, and then I realized it's not him. Like, it's like, oh wow, so they brought in someone who, has a good recognizable voice and can portray a really good character well, and they didn't have to spend like a ton of money on like a celebrity.
Yeah, exactly. And another great example I'd like to bring out is, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, the feature film, not the TV series. So most of the characters in that movie were voice actors. The only celebrities that they used were Patrick Stewart and Martin Short as the villains. Everybody else in the movie was a voice actor. Mm-hmm. Rob Paulson, Debbie Derryberry, let's see, Carolyn Lawrence, Candy Milo. They were all voice actors, and yet at the same time, it made over $100 million, and it was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah. Do you know what's sad, though, is like, I think, obviously, the class of voice actor we're going to get now is obviously going to be people who have constantly been in animation and movies. Like, but there was a class of voice actor who came from, like, the classic radio days. Like, when people couldn't afford TVs and all they could afford was radio, so all they could listen to was the radio dramas. And, like, we're not going to really have that kind of caliber. Don't get me wrong, Radio 4 and, obviously, I think, don't PBS sometimes do the radio dramas as well?
Yeah, they do.
And so, yeah, so, like, there will be, like, a small crew of people who can do that, but who will still be there. But I don't know, I think there's a golden age, I think, now in voice acting, which I think we'll never see again, I don't think. And it will just purely be people who have worked in the animation industry, or worked in voice acting, or doing voice things for TV and cinema and things. So yeah, but
I don't think there's really much to say about this movie, even though we didn't even really talk about this movie at all. But
what's
just
to talk about? Like, it's just
there's not really much to talk about. Exactly. So this movie did really well in the box office. It made a lot of money. It made $336 million out of an $80 million budget, so it was a success.
Well, but critically, it was an average. It was
Yeah, it was average. Some people just said it was like meh. Yeah. Comparing, like, it's just basically Madagascar, except with like, cuddling creatures and such. So
yeah, I'll definitely say this at this point. I'm definitely saying that Over the Hedge is probably not going to be in our top 10 list.
No, not even close. No. It's not as bad as Shark Tale, but it's pretty mediocre.
Yeah. So, obviously, to put an exact number on this, it got $335 million at the box office, and it took $80 million to make. But to be honest with you, the amount of needless celebrity appearances, I think you could say in this, I reckon the budget could have been way smaller.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this, or probably I did mention this in the Shrek 2 episode, that pretty much a lot of their budget went off to paying, Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz, because, they only had almost like $70,000, and they wanted like a higher budget for them. So like I would say like maybe like 1/3 of the budget for Shrek 2 went off to paying those those actors to voice their characters.
Rightly slow, to be honest with you. Shrek is probably up there with. I don't know. You can't really compare I guess I don't know how far you can compare Shrek with The Simpsons, but it's up there with like within that class of animation, and so it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they said, "Oh, hey, we want more money for Shrek. If you want us to keep doing this
exactly.
money," it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And keep it behind, it's probably the only way that Eddie Murphy's saving for a pension at the moment. So it's like,
yeah, and Mike Myers.
And Mike Myers. And, well, yeah, I think. Well, did Mike Myers also have? I mean, Mike Myers did Austin Powers, at least.
Yeah, around that time, but then he did movies like The Love Guru.
He did, but I would say that if we had to put Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers, like who's the biggest box office failure? I think we have to say Eddie Murphy by a long shot.
Yeah, that's
look
very
at
true.
all those horrible Disney movies that he did, like Night at the Mansion and things like that, and
Haunted Mansion,
and the Adventures of Pluto Nash, and just all these ideas which were terrible, and he did them, and I think he lost quite a bit of money out of it too.
Yeah, and he lost credibility for like a decade.
Yeah, and also like he was just piling up the Razzies as well. At least I think Mike Myers got a Razzie for The Love Guru. I think Eddie Murphy I think probably got a Razzie of the decade. I think at some point.
Yeah, I think he did get the Razzie for like the worst actor of the decade.
Yeah, he did. So, I think that's Over the Hedge, really, and as you can probably tell, not much to say. I mean,
I think that 2006 was kind of like a low point for like not only DreamWorks but for Disney as well, because Disney wasn't doing very well in the box office either. Like, they were being crushed by both DreamWorks and Pixar, and I think like the movie that they released around that time, I don't know if it was either Chicken Little or what was it, like Home on the Range or something.
Yeah, I think it was Home on the Range. I think it was.
Yeah, so it was not a good year for either of them. Pixar, let's see, what did they release in 2006? Let's see, I know that The Incredibles was 2004. So I take it that maybe they did release like a movie in 2006. So I'll probably just look it up real quick. But yeah, like 2006 must have not been a really good year for both of those companies, which is kind of ironic. They
released Finding Dory.
No, 2006 Pixar released Cars.
Oh, sorry, Pixar. Oh, well, that's what made the money.
Yeah, but like think about it, like. Oh God! Like all three of these major companies released movies that weren't really received very well.
I know, but I mean, keep in mind, like if we're talking about like box office flops or like anything like that, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, Disney, not only movie wise but merchandise wise, they were laughing all the way to the bank. Like,
that's true. That's true, and DreamWorks, very similar, and so was Pixar to an extent. So it was a good year for them financial wise, but like as for movies that people care about, not really.
No.
But yeah, I think that we can pretty much just wrap things up.
Okay, so for me, Aaron
and Patricia,
take care and don't go over the hedge.
See you later.